Taoiseach, the report into abuse in religious-run schools is horrific. Hundreds of predators subjected thousands of children to relentless sexual abuse. Survivors described being molested, stripped naked, raped and drugged in an atmosphere of terror and silence. The abuse happened in classrooms, in offices and sports facilities. Some were sexually abused in their own homes by predators who had gained their family's trust. Nowhere and no one was safe. The scale of abuse is such that gardaí are now investigating if it was organised and coordinated by paedophile rings. What we're dealing with is a scandal of unprecedented and unparalleled proportions. These predators acted with impunity, were protected by religious orders, and they destroyed the lives of countless innocent children. The immense bravery of those who've come forward to tell their stories is inspiring. I want to acknowledge the two brothers whose courage in speaking to RTE about their abuse in Blackrock College opened the floodgates. Mark and David Ryan. Sadly, Mark died before this report was published, but his legacy is one of enormous service to this country. Mark, David, and all of the other survivors have shown incredible bravery and courage. Taoiseach, can you explain why the state has not? The reaction of the state to this and every other abuse scandal involving religious orders is one of cowardice. Yourself and fellow ministers have implored religious orders to think about their Christian values and their moral obligations to contribute to redress. Taoiseach, can we please stop talking about Christian values and moral obligations when we're discussing children being raped and investigations into paedophile rings in schools? Where is the legal obligation? Where are the criminal convictions? Why are these orders not being raided by gardaí? Why are their assets not being seized? And why on earth are they still running our schools? It is unbelievable that successive governments' approach to these orders, which operated as criminal networks, is to roll over. We could be here today discussing legislation that would help us to hold these orders to account, but we're not. Taoiseach, we've had report after report after report about horrific child abuse carried out by members of religious orders, abuse that was deliberately facilitated and concealed by those orders. What will it take for the state to finally act and go after these orders with more than a pathetic appeal to their moral values?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Well, look, thanks very much, Deputy Kearns, for raising this extraordinarily important issue. Lives have been destroyed. National trauma has been unleashed. And I join with you in paying tribute to Mark and thinking of him and his memory today, his brother David, and indeed all of the survivors and victims who came forward. They have done the state an extraordinary service. And let me be really crystal clear, just in case there's any misinterpretation in any manner or means as to what you may or may not have heard me or any member of the government say in recent weeks. I was making the point that those who preach certain things should practice in that way. You left out the next sentence, but the next sentence is very important. The government takes nothing off the table in terms of what can and should be done in relation to this situation. The scoping inquiry, and I want to thank and commend Minister Foley for her work in this and the sensitive way she's handled this issue and worked with survivors, and pay tribute to her for that. The scoping inquiry is very, very clear in terms of the responsibility and obligation of religious orders to, quite frankly, cough up here in terms of redress. And we certainly shouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past in relation to this. So anybody who thinks, and I don't wish to speak about these matters in crude terms, anyone who thinks anyone's going to get off the hook here in relation to their responsibility and obligation, moral or otherwise, is wrong, and that is a misplaced view. What we want to do now is get the next steps right. The most important thing we have to do as a government right now is make sure that we put the correct mechanism in place in terms of the commission of investigation. Because I've heard what the survivors have said very clearly. They don't want to wait years and years and years and years and years again. This has destroyed their lives, as you rightly say. It's put their lives on hold. They want a process that's going to deliver for them. And you know what? Sometimes in this country we've done this well, and sometimes we have done it appallingly badly. And we need to get that right. Redress will have to be a part of that, but it is only a part of that, because truth, justice and accountability is also a major part as well. You ask questions in relation to why do the guards not do this and why do the guards not do that. I don't and we don't in this house direct the gardaí. But what we do know is the gardaí have been extraordinarily clear in terms of asking people to come forward and indeed to make complaints and make statements. And I understand that that's already happened in many cases, and therefore there is a live Garda investigation into these matters as well. The scale of this is shocking, and you rightly say that religious orders knew. So did a lot of people in society. Religious orders knew, but it seems to me a hell of a lot of people must have known about this. The scale of this is so large that the idea that this wasn't known widely in society is just not a credible proposition for anyone to put forward. So be clear, Ceann Comhairle, be clear, people of Ireland, we will act in relation to this. We will have a full commission of investigation. We have decided that as a government. We will do it in consultation and designing it in the way that works for survivors, led by Minister Foley. We'll get this right. We'll work across this House to get this right. And we don't rule out legislation, legal change or any action that may be taken to make sure people, for once and for all, step up to the responsibilities that they've been evading and running from for decades.
Deputy Kearns.
You said this government takes nothing off the table, and anyone who thinks that they'll get off the hook is wrong. But just for your information, that's literally just happened with regard to the redress scheme for mother and baby homes. The Minister went over cap in hand to the church to try and get a contribution and didn't get one. But I'm wondering if you're aware of a legal strategy that's being used by the Christian Brothers when survivors take a case against them. They're using a technicality to force survivors who want to sue them to name every member of the order from the time that they were abused. So this can mean having to find the names of up to 120 people. Oftentimes they have to go to the High Court to try to extract this information from the Christian Brothers. And that's just to start the case. So can you imagine how much it costs survivors to take them on? Can you imagine how difficult it is? Can you imagine the trauma that that's causing? So why is that legal? In Australia, when religious orders began using despicable defences to evade responsibility for child abuse in the court, the Parliament there changed the law. So Taoiseach, again, I'm asking you, why are you not looking at laws like this, which will actually deliver justice? Have you tried anything other than just appealing to the religious orders to use their, what you call, Christian values?
Have you, Deputy? Because this isn't just a debating chamber. You're a legislator, and anybody can bring forward legislation in relation to this House. So if you have ideas in relation to how you think the law should be changed, bring it forward. Bring it forward and we'll engage with you. Bring it forward and thank you very much, because we're not just here to commentate on this most shocking national tragedy and trauma. We're here to actually come forward with ideas, and I've said to you very clearly, I don't intend to play politics with this or throw your words back at you in a way you tend to misrepresent mine. I was calling on people who call themselves Christian to act in accordance with their values. I also said that we're going to use every lever at our disposal to make sure these people get truth, accountability and justice, and nothing is off the table. I don't think I can be any clearer to survivors, but the only thing is I'm reassured that survivors understand what I'm saying, even if you're choosing not to. We're going to get this right. We're going to, for once and for all as a state, prove that we can actually help heal and not just brush things under the carpet. Like, how many reports have we had in this country that all show us, and show us horrific trauma, and every now and again everybody gets offended and upset and says things will change, and it hasn't. We still have not dealt with this as a country. The scale of abuse, the abuse and mistrust that happened, people who had authority and responsibility and were trusted with our children and failed to live it. We will get this right. We'll work with you. So any legislative proposals are welcome from you, and we'll hear them. But Minister Foley is going about this the right way, engaging with survivors in terms of the next steps, and nobody will get off the hook. And the mother and baby process, that's still ongoing.